Okay, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Hello and welcome to our next Evernym webinar. Today, we are delighted to be sharing the latest from the Evernym product team, and specifically, we're going to be talking about the Evernym product stack. My name is Jamie Smith, and I'm going to be your host for today's webinar. I'm going to be joined by James Monaghan and Tyler Ruff from our product team. Now, we have a packed agenda for you today. James is going to first talk us through what it means, what we mean by decentralized identity. He's then going to talk a little bit about the Evernym's product stack, both solutions for organizations and also for customers. We're then going to hand over to Tyler Ruff, who is going to be doing a live demo for us, which is very exciting. And then after the demo, we're going to hand back to James, who's going to share some of the great use cases our customers and partners have around the world. And that's really going to bring to life our solutions in a number of different contexts and industries. James will then touch on the product roadmap, those things that we're working on at the moment and coming soon. And then I'm going to wrap up by talking about how you can get started today with our products and solutions. Finally, we're going to take some questions through Q&A, and there's a button in the webinar that will allow you to submit questions. So just as a quick reminder, we are recording this webinar, but if you do have questions as we go through, then please do submit them. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to James Monaghan to talk about what we mean by decentralized identity.
Thanks very much, Jamie. And let me just add my greeting. It's really very exciting to be able to share some of what we've been working on so hard for the last several years with all of you. And we're very grateful for your attention. But as Jamie said, in order to really put the products in context and understand what it is that everybody at Evernym comes to work every day to tackle, we first need to explain just a little bit about what decentralized identity is and why you might want one. And to do that, you really need to consider what digital identity of any kind is. And the truth is that, there we are, right button, that we use identities all the time, both online and off. In many regards, identity underpins almost every interaction we have in the physical world and the digital one. And so many of our interactions begin by actually establishing trust, proving who we are, proving that we're entitled to enter a building or access a service or log into a website. And in the physical world, we do that all the time using credentials. Credentials can be membership cards, they can be government ID, they can be healthcare cards, things like that. And they've all got a few features in common. They come from recognizable, trusted authorities like the Driver's License Authority here in the UK, for example. It contains some information that organization has attested about me. And usually with a photo or some other biometric device, I'm able to prove that they're mine. But more than that, these are portable. I can literally carry these with me in my wallet, and I can use them in a number of different contexts, not just to operate a car in this case, but actually I can use this to purchase age-restricted goods or to register when I'm entering a building or a conference or something like that. And when you think about how digital credentials work, they're almost the exact opposite. I can't use a paper credential like this remotely. And all of my digital credentials are basically usernames and passwords that give me access to some database stored by some faceless company somewhere that contains some information about me. And typically, that digital identity is only useful in that one context. I have one identity for my email server, one for a social network, one for a particular retailer I shop with. And actually, they're not portable, they're not interchangeable, and they're not under my control. You add to that the fact that as these companies are collecting more and more information about us, they don't have the best track record of keeping that safe. You only need to open the newspaper to see week after week stories about hundreds of millions of records being breached and identity theft being rife because there's simply so much of that personal information now available on the dark web. And so we set that trend against the regulatory environment where you've got movements like GDPR and the CCPA driving a very strong imperative for organizations to be a lot more deliberate about the information they collect, be a lot more clear and transparent about the processes that they're collecting it for, to only collect the minimum amount required, and actually to give the individuals, the data subjects, the ability to view, correct, audit, and in fact request the deletion of some of that information. So with all that going on, we at Evernym believe that the current model of siloed digital identity is completely unsustainable and a complete reboot is required. The world we would like to bring about is one where every person, every organization, every connected device has its own digital identity, something which they can store and own and control themselves and actually use to prove things about themselves in a number of digital contexts. We'd like a world where banks and retailers can onboard new customers with really high assurance, but very, very low friction at a single click. We'd like individuals to do away with hundreds of usernames and passwords and the constant threat of identity theft. And we'd like connected devices to actually work for their owners as opposed to the surveillance economy. That is what we're looking for when we say we're pushing for decentralized identity. But how would we go about this? Well, we took a fairly unconventional approach to bringing this about, which was not to go and create a series of products which are Evernym branded that allow you to get your Evernym decentralized identity. No, we decided to start at the very root. And so we've been working with a number of our peers in the industry on a series of open interoperable standards and protocols for how you can prove things about yourself with very high trust and very strong privacy in the digital world. These standards are being incubated at the World Wide Web Consortium and the Decentralized Identity Foundation, amongst others, and represent the real coming together of a number of the greatest minds in digital identity. Secondly, we realized that simply having a bunch of standards wasn't very useful if there wasn't a reference implementation of that. But we knew that wasn't something that any one company should be able to own and control either. And so we created open source reference implementations of these standards and created a nonprofit foundation to govern a global network that actually runs the identity infrastructure, which is available for anybody in the world to use. And that network is operated by, it's called the Sovrin Foundation, as many of you know, and that's operated by almost 70 different organizations from all around the world, companies large and small, NGOs and nonprofits as well. And finally, just having the ability to have a decentralized identity is not very meaningful in itself. The next key was to build the tools for both individuals and institutions to make this not just possible, but useful and compelling. And that's really going to be the focus of today's presentation, is actually explaining what it is that we've built to help individuals and organizations actually take advantage of all this enabling capability. If you'd like more details on the basics of self-sovereign identity, decentralized identity, and all the open source underpinnings, we did a webinar a few weeks ago that was simply called "What is Self-Sovereign Identity?" There's a link down here, and we'll be sharing it with all of you who've given us your email address as well, so you'll be able to follow up on that in your own time. So what I'd now like to talk about is what these products are and how they might be useful to many of you who are attending. So the tool that we've built for businesses and institutions is called Verity. Verity is Evernym's enterprise-grade credentials exchange platform. It makes it very, very simple for organizations of any kind to issue secure, portable digital credentials that can represent any number of different things, not just driver's licenses and passports and things like that, but something as simple as a movie ticket or a membership card, an entitlement to log into a protected resource or to enter a secure area. And these portable credentials can be stored in a mobile wallet application that supports any of these open standards that I mentioned earlier. Issuing these credentials is a simple matter of integrating our SDK into any existing software system that you might have, or using the web-based tool that comes with the Verity platform and manually issuing that credential. But the key is that it makes it very simple and straightforward to automate the issuance of the digital credential. So if you've got an existing business process that at some point spits out an entitlement or a qualification or a degree certificate or simply a membership or a login, that can be very simply transformed into a credential-based workflow. And you don't have to choose from the existing library of verifiable credential schemas and specifications that exist on the Sovrin network. It's actually very simple to create your own schema and define a credential that suits your particular business purposes. But Verity is about more than simply issuing digital credentials. It also makes it very easy for organizations to consume and verify those. So if you think about any business process that has a long registration form where you're collecting reams and reams of basically unverified customer data, what Verity allows you to do instead is to request that information from an individual's digital wallet application and receive verified credentials instead of self-attested information. That can take not only a lot of friction out of the registration process, but it can also take a lot of the lack of assurance out as well. skipping the user several steps ahead into the registration process. But it can also be used for flows as simple as a login, where you're just asking if the individual has the right entitlements to be there. And it supports the principles of data minimization that I was talking about earlier, where if all you need to know is that I'm a UK resident over the age of 18, that's all you'd need to request. You don't need every single attribute that might be on my driver's license. And again, as with the issuing capability, Verity gives you both a software development kit that makes requesting this data the matter of a simple couple lines of code, but it also includes a web interface that allows you to manually request information from individuals that you're connected to. Now, there's been a lot of talk about credentials, and that really is how most people in our space tend to think about digital identity. But really, the key of sovereign infrastructure and Hyperledger Indy in particular is not just powerful, portable, privacy-enhancing digital credentials, but it's the peer-to-peer authenticated connection between institutions and individuals that having those credentials lets you establish. Once you've got that connection, it can be used for any type of interaction, not simply proving things about yourself, but actually sending messages, requesting content, and delivering confirmations and other types of notifications. And so Verity also supports some of those capabilities to make it very easy to build workflows that go beyond simple credential issuance. So we have what we call our structured messaging capability, which allows you to send simple notifications. So for example, asking an individual to agree to some terms and conditions. It can send challenge response queries where you can ask an individual to confirm, for example, that they're making a withdrawal at a particular ATM. And it can also, if you give the individual multiple choices, allow you to build branches and other more complicated flows. And you'll see on the left there an example of what a multiple choice response looks like. So again, this is as simple as specifying a number of possible answers when you send the message. And what happens when the individual taps that button is you're actually getting a cryptographically signed response. So it's not just secure and encrypted, but it's also authenticated, which is very useful from a compliance and audit perspective. Now, as I mentioned, the primary intent of Verity is for our customers and partners to take that SDK and integrate that into applications that they're building or existing business processes they have. But we recognize that a lot of organizations are wanting to get their feet wet and actually understand what digital and decentralized identity is like without committing lots of development resource. And so Verity also includes a web-based management console that does two main things. Number one, it allows you to view a simple dashboard, as you'll see in this example, which sort of gives you a representation of the current state of your organizational decentralized identity. But secondly, it allows you to manually create your schemas and your credential definitions, establish connections with individuals, issue credentials, and also request proof of those credentials from people. And so what quite a few of our customers do early on in their self-sovereign identity journey is they'll gather a group of stakeholders around a conference table, each with a laptop using this web interface, and actually run what we call a conference table POC there and then. And that can take a lot of the mystery out of all the technical underpinnings and help win support and buy-in from more senior stakeholders. So accompanying Verity, which is the tool for institutions, is a companion tool which is built for individuals. ConnectMe is the name of the world's first sovereign network compatible digital wallet application. It's available in the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store now. You can go and search for it, ConnectMe, in both of those stores and download it today. And it's a very simple but very effective way for individuals to establish connections with institutions, receive verifiable credentials that could be anything from a membership card to a degree certificate to an entitlement, and then subsequently provide proof of those credentials, whether they're logging in or applying for a new product or so on and so forth. Now, ConnectMe is intended to interoperate with any of the standards that are supported in the Hyperledger Indy open source reference implementations, as well as the Evernym software stack. But by being produced by the same team that's building Verity, one of the advantages is that we guarantee compatibility, not just now, but in the future for individuals that use the ConnectMe application. So that's the sort of broad context of what we've been building to try and bring digital identity to life. But if you ask me, nothing really is quite as compelling as seeing the products in action. And so for that, we're going to go for maximum jeopardy. And I'm going to ask my colleague Tyler to give us an exciting live demo of some web applications that we've built that actually incorporate the Verity SDK on the back end and the ConnectMe mobile application on the front end. You'll be able to see what a representative interaction looks like using these tools. So Tyler, I'll hand over to you.
All right. Thank you. So as James said, the ConnectMe app is available in the Google Play Store and the Apple App Store. Just search Evernym or search ConnectMe and you'll find it. So for the demo that we're doing, it showcases the ConnectMe app that we've built for individuals to use as their digital wallet, where they can go and gather digital credentials. So on my screen, you'll see on the right side, I'm casting my phone screen. You can see I've got all my apps here, and I've got the ConnectMe app open. This is a fresh install, and I don't have anything in the wallet yet. And you see it's prompting me to go through the tutorial, and that's what we're going to do here. So the scenario in this demo assumes that I'm Alice, and I go through college. So let's pretend that to start the college process, I want to go and matriculate with Faber College. I will first see a button there that says connect with my digital wallet or something of the sort. And so if I go to click this, they're going to generate a unique pairwise relationship. And they might do this for everybody that applies to be a student. And so maybe part of the application process is they will generate new unique relationships with each customer. So that's what they're doing with the QR code. So I scan that from the ConnectMe app. I see that they want to connect with me. When I hit connect, my app is creating a unique pairwise relationship with Faber College. And Faber is going to see that, and when they get it back on their end, they're going to see that, yes, Alice has accepted our connection. We now have a private way to communicate with this student. And so now over that private channel, we can exchange information. So let's pretend that the next part of the demo is time has passed and I've graduated college, and now they're offering me a way to have a digital version of my transcripts, which would be pretty useful. I could collect those in my digital wallet. So they're offering me a digital copy of my transcripts. So I'll hit continue and say, yeah, I want digital transcripts. So they'll send me an offer, and I'll see that here. So what I'm looking at is a digital credential offer coming from Faber College. And this is a simple example, obviously, of some attributes that might show up in a college transcript. But I'm going to hit accept and say, yeah, I want this digital credential in my wallet. So I'm going to hit accept, and then I'll click on my relationship with Faber College and see it's on its way. So when Faber College gets my acceptance, they'll automatically issue it. And you can see it's already been issued back to my phone on the right side. I can see this credential. It's got 5 attributes in it. I can view it. So this is now stored in my wallet. And as far as ConnectMe goes, I can't speak for other wallets, but the way that we've done this is all of the credentials that ConnectMe gathers remain on the phone. There's a wallet local to the phone, and that's where the credentials are stored and held. Okay, so now I've got a digital credential for my transcripts. So the next part of the tutorial assumes, okay, now you've graduated college, let's go get a job. So that's the next step. And we've created Acme Corporation. Let's say I want to apply for a job there. And there's some things that they want to know about me that I have to fill out as part of the job application. So the first step naturally would be I need to first form a private connection with them. Through that connection, I'll share my job application privately. So I'm going to hit a button that says connect with my digital wallet. They're going to want to connect with me. They could do this through a link. We use QR codes because that's easy to do between a website and a phone. But there's multiple ways to form this connection. So I'm going to connect with Acme Corp. And then once I've connected with them, they will immediately turn around and say, okay, now that we have a unique connection, let's send you what's called a proof request. And it's the digital equivalent of what we like to call sometimes like a form to fill out. You fill out a big form. So The next thing that happens is it'll go through and ask me for a whole bunch of verifiable information. So in this case, in this example, Acme Corp wants to know my student name, college name, degree, major, and GPA. And so it sent that request over the new pairwise unique connection that we just established. And it happened kind of quickly if you're watching both sides of the screen. But on the phone side, I got this notification and it says it wants you to fill out a form. And what the phone did was it got that request, saw all the things that Acme Corp was asking for, went and searched the wallet and said, hey, we have all of these attributes. Let's autofill the form and present it to the user and see if they want to send it. And so it's suggesting that I fulfill it with all these things because I have them in my wallet. I've fulfilled all the criteria. And I can see it's got the Faber College logo there, so I can see where it's pulling that data from in my wallet. So I'm fine with sharing these things with Acme Corp. I want to get a job here. So I'm going to hit send and send that over to Faber College. And if I look at Acme Corp, you can see what I've shared. And they're on their side, when they get it, the screen refreshed automatically. You can see there's all this self-attested or the verifiable data that's been filled out automatically. So I'll hit continue. And then, yes, let's check the status of my application. We'll start on Monday. Sweet, so we've been hired. So as part of being hired, maybe they issue me a credential that allows me to prove that I have a job. So that's what they're doing now. They've offered me a quite big credential that has some information about my employment. It's pretty cool, it'll be pretty useful. So I'm gonna hit accept. And then I will have a digital credential shortly for my employment. And this is where I'll stop. The tutorial website keeps going, but we will leave that for you guys to go and do on your own. Anybody can go and hit this website, try.connect.me. Once you've got ConnectMe installed on your phone, you can go through the whole tutorial and go farther than I've just done to see there actually is a third step as to what you do with the credentials you've gathered so far. But the point of this tutorial and interacting with the app is to show you how secure and simple and easy it can be to gather digital credentials in a way that is private and pseudonymous and secure. I've connected with 2 organizations so far on completely separate, private, unique cryptographic channels and exchanged information on my terms. And that's with a digital wallet that is on my phone that I'm holding and have control over. That's kind of the spirit of self-sovereign identity from the individual's perspective. And so hopefully that helps you get an understanding of how simple and slick and secure the interactions can be when you enable customers to have this type of interaction. So James, I'll turn back to you.
Fantastic. Thanks very much, Tyler. I see you made the appropriate sacrifice to the demo gods earlier on this morning, so that went without a hitch. That was great. But actually, it's wonderful to see. I mean, you know, from my perspective, if we've done our job right, then these interactions should be pretty underwhelming. It's where there used to be a complicated, burdensome form to fill in. Instead, I just get to the next step with a couple taps. And so, in many ways, you know, these whole interactions become quite straightforward, quite transactional. And you know, I would love to be in a world where actually individuals are taking this sort of thing for granted rather than the current really cumbersome and untrusted way of interacting. But anyway, as Tyler said, try.connect.me is live in the app. You can go and get in the App Store, connect.me, and try that demo out for yourself. And we're always excited to get some feedback. So up next, I'd like to talk about some other examples. So this is a section where I get to share a few details about what some of our customers are doing using Verity and the Sovrin network to build solutions using decentralized identity. So the first up is actually one of our oldest partners. It's an organization called CU Ledger, which is a North American-based consortium of credit unions that represents about 130 million members. And what CU Ledger is doing is issuing a portable and private KYC compliant member-controlled digital ID to credit union members. And the target for this year is to onboard up to 1 million members. And initially, That ID will be used simply to provide a more frictionless and more secure method to prove that you're a member when you call into a call center, walk into a branch, or log in onto a website or a mobile application. But in future, they imagine the use of this MyCUID credential to extend into a number of other ancillary use cases where proving that you're a reputable member of a financial institution is useful in all kinds of walks of life, whether it's getting a car loan or a number of other transactions like that. So CU Ledger has been an early supporter of Sovrin, an early partner of Evernym, and we're really, really excited for the pilots that they're launching in the second half of this year. The next example is also in financial services, actually. So we have a company called Deloitte that some of you might have heard of. Deloitte is working with Evernym and Onfido, which is a remote document verification company, to do a trial this year in the UK's Financial Conduct Authority regulatory sandbox, where we're demonstrating how retail customers can sign up for financial products, be they credit cards or savings accounts and so on and so forth, in a single tap on their mobile device. So there's lots of fintechs and challenger banks out there today that allow you to register by taking a picture of your driver's license, taking a selfie, typing in some personal details. But the problem is, as we unbundle financial services and individuals are no longer getting all of their products from a single organization, they're being faced with that onboarding process time after time after time again. And it's a real problem for some of these companies in conversion. And so what Deloitte is building is a turnkey solution for customer onboarding with strong KYC and AML that's based on a reusable verification. So individuals can get their identity verified once, store a copy of that on their ConnectMe mobile application, and then submit that multiple times whenever they need to apply for a financial product. And the third example, and I should say it's really hard. I was allowed to only pick 3, and it's like picking your favorite kids. It's very difficult. We've got a whole host of customers building really, really exciting use cases, but I was asked just to highlight 3. And so the third one is another UK-based one. You can see my bias, but this is a company called True, which is building an ecosystem around credentials for doctors. So around 40,000 clinical days a year are lost due to the re-credentialing needs of junior doctors who rotate between hospitals all the time. Doctors have to bring their original degree certificate, proof that they have an up-to-date background check, proof of their general medical council registration number, and a whole host of other credentials before they're allowed to practice. And that makes perfect sense. You want to make sure that the person who's about to provide treatment is who they claim to be and is appropriately qualified. But what True has done is bring together an ecosystem of credentialing providers who are going to issue digital equivalents of those academic and professional qualifications, the core identity document, the background check, and the GMC number, so that the ConnectMe mobile application can act essentially as a doctor's passport. And then doctors can be onboarded in a matter of seconds for a new shift at a new hospital. That's going to be very valuable for junior doctors, but also for all the temporary doctors that work in hospitals, not just in the UK, but worldwide. So we're really, really excited to see that launch later this year as well. And so with that said, the last section of this presentation is just a little hint at some of the features that are coming on the roadmap. So the team is heads down responding to all the feedback that we've got from members of our early adopter program, as well as the needs of our pilot customers. And so we've got a long list of really, really exciting things that we're looking to bring to market in the next 12 months. But there's just a few details that I think might pique your interest. So I'll share some of these. The first is quite a common request that we've had from customers, which is to be able to take the core mobile wallet capabilities that exist inside ConnectMe, but rather than asking their customers or members or employees to download a new app, they'd like to be able to embed that capability inside an app that they already have out there. And that makes sense. If you're a bank with 40 million downloads of your mobile banking app and you want to offer digital credentials for paperless statements and things like that, it's probably a good idea to be able to kickstart that distribution by integrating it directly in your mobile application. So to respond to that need, we've taken the guts essentially of the ConnectMe app and we've packaged that up in a software development kit that our customers can use to build some of these capabilities into apps of their own. So this SDK is backed by the same cloud infrastructure that powers our ConnectMe mobile app, and it runs on the same hardware. It has the same support team looking after it, so you can be assured that it's got the full weight of Evernym's reputation standing behind it. but it allows you to build user interfaces and workflows that are more specific to your use case than a general purpose mobile wallet application like ConnectMe has. Now, we believe that in the long term, the real benefits of self-sovereign identity are unlocked when you recognize that actually individuals can come to you with a mobile application already on the device with a number of credentials already in there that they've obtained before they even had that interaction with you. But in order to kickstart adoption, we think it makes a lot of sense to enable those early adopters to be able to do these interactions directly within their mobile app. So that's what the ConnectMe SDK has been built to enable. Now, one thing that we've seen a lot of our early customers use Verity to implement is authentication and login workflows. So, while as Tyler showed you, you can use Verity and ConnectMe to register new customers and to do issue degree certificates and do all kinds of more overtly credential-based applications. Very commonly, what individuals want is a way to do single sign-on that works across technical and business silos. And that's actually quite difficult to do with conventional identity and access management solutions. So what we've done is taken the core credential capability of the Verity SDK and packaged that in a really simple API called Verity Auth that is built specifically for offering authentication workflows to your customers. So rather than having to create your own credential definition for this and build all of the workflows surrounding establishing a new connection and issuing that credential, we've made it as simple as dropping a widget into a web page where you can snap a QR code and then actually log that user in. So today, customers will integrate that using an SDK that's really straightforward to code against. But later on in the year, we plan to roll out plugins which support popular identity and access management platforms that are already in wide use, and also compliance with some of the industry standards like OpenID Connect. And the other feature I'd like to share with you is a product called Verity Onboard. So this will be much more recognizable as the demo that Tyler went through, where basically Verity Onboard is intended to eliminate registration forms and sign-up forms that typically are cumbersome for individuals to fill in, request more data than is strictly necessary, and don't have a way of capturing verifiable data. So Verity Onboard gives you, again, on top of the basic credential infrastructure that Verity has, a simple API for requesting the handful of user attributes that you need to actually onboard a new customer. It offers a couple of standard modes. One is for onboarding a verified individual without collecting any personal data. So if you just need to know that I'm over 18 and a UK resident, you can configure Verity Onboard to do that and know with certainty that that individual has been verified and is a real person, and without having to store that information forever and deal with the compliance burden of that. But it also supports use cases such as in regulated industries where you need to actually collect the personal data about the individual. So it supports profiles where you can collect first name, last name, date of birth, etc. And again, this is done using a simple API that's very easy to drop in place of an existing web form that you might have on your website. And to accompany that, we've also built into the ConnectMe application itself the ability to obtain credentials directly. So rather than having to go and find some issuer in the Sovrin ecosystem that supports your type of government issued document, we've actually partnered with a handful, and the first that we've integrated is from Onfido actually, where you're able to scan your government issued ID in a handful of countries, whether that's your driver's license, ID card, or passport, and obtain a simple credential that contains your basic identity parameters like first name, last name, and date of birth. And the thinking behind that is that over time, we'll support a whole portfolio of credential issuers inside of the ConnectMe app itself. And then when individuals are needing to provide those credentials for an account registration flow, for example, they won't need to scratch around and find them because they'll already be there in their wallet. So that's a little bit about what's coming. There's a lot more that I'd really like to share with you, but Jamie also wants to talk about how some of you, if you like what you've seen, can actually get your hands on these products and start applying them to you.
Thank you, James. That was really great, and I love the fact that we're making this available today, and it gives us a perfect opportunity to talk about our early access plan. And we, over the last year, we've had increasing demand from our partners, the market, to access our products and solutions. And so you can go and buy a product license and go into production today. But what we've made available to everyone now is an early access plan, which means you can get your hands on our products, including those not released, whilst learning about the technology, building demonstrators and proof of concepts. So when you're ready, you can then easily transition into production. You get the products, you get dedicated support, comprehensive online courses, and also exclusive access to customer webinars and a whole lot of content that really gets you started quickly, as well as thought leadership. And one of my favorite aspects of the early access plan is the fact that we've got dozens of organizations already joined around the world, and they're already building POCs and pilots and working together and building ecosystems. So we can make introductions to those like-minded businesses if you join. So you can get started today, and we'd love it if you came and get involved. So please do get in contact. So that takes us to the end of our presentation. And I wanted to say thank you very much to James and Tyler for their presentations. But what we'll now do is turn it over to you. So we'll have some Q&A. The time's out in about 5 minutes, so we'll take a couple of questions and then see how we're getting on. So let's dive straight in. We're going to have a look at see what's come in. First question, James, probably for you. So what makes an identity really decentralized, other than just it being a buzzword?
Oh, that's a great question, and perhaps that's some useful feedback on the intro there. Yeah. So the key is that most digital identities today, when we describe them as centralized, what we really mean is that you're on the outside. You've created an account somewhere, but all the valuable information, all your personal data, all lives in the same database as everybody else's, that actually lives with the company that is the quote-unquote identity provider in that context. So you think about signing with Facebook, for example. Facebook has the data on billions and billions of users, and if you're lucky, they might let someone else tap into that if you want to log in using Facebook. A decentralized identity model turns that inside out. And so in decentralized identity, we say actually there is no identity provider that stores all the information about all the people. That's not Facebook, but it's also not Evernym. It's not even the Sovrin network. No information goes on that network either. Now, where the personal data lives at rest is where it belongs, is with the individual. And so there is no central node that knows everything about everybody, but each individual is able to prove what they need to about themselves in any of the interactions that they have. And so that puts the power where it naturally belongs, and it also completely changes the attack surface when you think about potential data breaches and things like that, because instead of breaching hundreds of millions or even billions of records at a time, if you want to get my personal data, you've literally got to come and get it off the encrypted storage on my mobile phone. So that's the decentralized property there that we feel is very, very critical for this next phase of digital identity.
Fantastic. Thank you, James. We've had a question in here, someone looking closely at the app. There is a discovery tab, and they wanted to know a bit more about what's in there. And I'm wondering if Tyler might take that from an app perspective.
Yeah, sharp eyes, whoever saw that. That's good. The app that I demoed with doesn't have that tab yet. That's because it's under construction. It's coming soon. The purpose of that view is to be the place where users can go and discover what kind of useful credentials are out there. And in other words, they'll be able to see what issuers are available. And for example, the one that we do have support for now that was mentioned is on FIDO. On FIDO is an organization that does the remote verification of your driver's license or passport or other identity documents. If you've ever signed up with Airbnb to be a host, their app has you go through a process where you scan your driver's license and then take a selfie. That's on FIDO powering that identification check. And we've done an integration with ConnectMe where you can go through that same identification check, and on FIDO will actually, if they on their side think that it's legitimate and that you are the person in the license and they think the license is legitimate, they'll issue you a digital credential for your documents, and they can do it for passports. And anyway, it's a pilot that's going on in the UK. And so the OnFido ability to get a digital driver's license or digital copy of it issued by OnFido will be an example of one of the things available in the Discover tab.
Thanks, Tyler. Another great question that has come in, it says, we talk about how the products are interoperable with the open source implementations. I was wondering, James, if you can maybe talk a bit about the open source side of things.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So there's one of the exciting things about working in this space is there's a huge amount of activity. And so, Evernym is just one company, but actually there are many tens of organizations that are all trying to move this decentralized identity rock up the hill, so to speak. And so it really breaks down into a few different camps. There's the standardization camps that are focused on the decentralized identifiers and the verifiable credentials themselves, so the DIDs and their verifiable credentials. And there's a few other networks out there that have implementations of what's called DID methods, like why is that popped up there? DID methods and verifiable credential specs. And so interoperability at that level is something that both the W3C and also the Decentralized Identity Foundation is working on open source tools like a universal resolver, for example, so that anyone can plug in DID resolution into their app. The next stage is the protocol itself. So how do you create a connection between two parties and agree what credentials need to be exchanged using what format and so on and so forth. And that's something which, when we created Hyperledger Indy, we also put out an example of a protocol that we just called libvcx that we also open sourced, that was a way that you could string these things together in a sensible way and make it work end to end. So that's what is at the core of Verity and ConnectMe, and that's currently available as open source. But actually, the community continues to evolve very, very quickly. So we just a few weeks ago also announced a project called Hyperledger Aries, which is the coming together of not just thinking from Evernym, but the British Columbia government, IBM, Uport, who built a separate identity network on top of Ethereum. And all these different companies working together on what could a truly cross-network interoperable identity protocol look like. So we're really excited to be contributing to the Hyperledger Aries project. And in the fullness of time, both Verity and ConnectMe will end up adopting Aries as the core protocol that it uses for identity interaction. So at the moment, the ConnectMe tool and Verity are certainly interoperable within the sort of Evernym ecosystem and a subset of the broader Hyperledger ecosystem. But sort of towards the end of the year, we expect that the RFCs and draft standards that are in Aries will start to firm up to a point where Evernym and others will be making concrete implementations of those in our commercial products. And that's something that we're really, really excited to see.
Thank you, James. There's a whole range of different questions that are around, can I use this now? And how can I join? How can I get access to the solutions? Is it live? Is the question.
I think you could answer that one, Jamie. But yeah, the short answer is absolutely. So those three customer profiles, for example, that I mentioned, those are all in either in live pilot right now or launching later this quarter. So that's integrated into the production Sovrin ledger, using Evernym's Verity software, and either distributing the ConnectMe mobile application to their end users, or integrating the ConnectMe SDK into an existing third-party application that already has distribution. So those are just some examples of what's live. It's worth noting that Evernym isn't the only company that's supporting the Sovrin and Hyperledger Indy based networks either. So I mentioned the British Columbia government earlier. They were actually one of the first to go live on production in the Sovrin network, and they've built a directory for all of the businesses in the province of British Columbia in Canada, and issued many millions of credentials to them. So there's a lot of live production use cases that are actually in use on the network today. And we couldn't be more excited about the pipeline for things that are going to be launching in the second half of the year and going into next year.
Fantastic. There is a question here about cloud infrastructure. What is hosted in Evernym's cloud infrastructure? What part of the solution requires implementation for a business customer?
So, Jamie, I'm sorry, would you repeat that for a second?
Yeah, sure. So we've talked about Evernym's cloud infrastructure.
Yes.
What is hosted there, and is that part of the solution requiring implementation for a business customer? Can it be hosted in the business's environment?
Absolutely, thank you. Yeah, so the whole purpose of decentralized identity is absolutely that. This is about the trust, so all the secrets, the cryptographic keys that control these things, and also all the personal data living kind of at the edge, as we call it. And so institutions are the only people that are able to see in the clear the text of the credentials that they're issuing, or the proof that they're receiving. And they're also the only parties that know about the connections with individuals that they have. And similarly, for individuals who are using the ConnectMe app, in the encrypted wallet that's actually on their device is the only place that any of that information lives in the clear. So when an organization is deploying Verity, the default model is for them to deploy that on the infrastructure of their choosing. So Evernym can host some of that in the cloud for them if they would like, and we definitely offer that primarily for customers of the early access program who just want to get up and running as quick as possible. But for all the organizations that are issuing in production, that's something which they control in their infrastructure. For ConnectMe customers, the default is to use Evernym's cloud infrastructure to essentially act as a message broker. So support store and forward, so that if your phone is switched off or doesn't have coverage, it can relay a message down to your phone when you pop back up. But because all of the relationships in Sovrin are end-to-end encrypted, it's the Evernym's cloud infrastructure can't see the contents of any of those messages, and actually doesn't know anything about who is sending a message to anyone else. It literally is just a very secure, reliable message relay. So that's we basically architected this on the basis that we need to be as decentralized as possible. And if we do our job right and get all these exciting pilots out the door, there's going to be a lot of bad people that might want to access personal data from Evernym, and so we've made it so we don't store any, and therefore it's very, very difficult to get hold of it.
Thanks very much. So there's a question in here about the mobile SDKs and when it's available. So I'll take that as part of responding to the idea that we have a bunch of products, specifically Verity. It's available right now. You can come and buy a product license and get into production. We can help you with that. But the early access plan is the best way for us to have a conversation about what your requirements are. The mobile SDK is not yet publicly available, but we are making it selectively available to specific customers on a case-by-case basis. And we've already had some customers, use it within a couple of days. They had their mobile app live, and they were doing live demos at a conference. So we know, we're pretty confident that it's in a great place. So if you join the early access plan, that's the best way for you to get access to those pre-releases products, but also to have, frankly, the chat with us about what your requirements are. There is probably time for one more question. I'd say, really great question actually here about blockchain. So where does blockchain fit into the persistence model for the credentials? I have to say we will be getting back to everyone, all the other questions that came in and a couple others that came in before the webinar. So we will get back to you. But before we close, I do want to talk about, or maybe James can pick up on how blockchain fits into this whole story.
Yeah, happy to. And definitely, if you want a longer answer than I'm going to have time for right now, do definitely check out the previous webinar that we did. But in a nutshell, blockchain plays a very small but crucial role. And so, as I mentioned earlier in my answer about decentralized identity, we don't store anybody's personal information on Evernym servers, on company servers, or on the Sovrin network itself. All the personal information lives entirely at the edge, so either with the issuer of the credential or with the individual who has it. What the Sovrin network itself is used for is a very reliable, very tamper-evident store of all the DIDs, the decentralized identifiers, and the corresponding verification keys for well-known public entities. So issuers of credentials or institutions that you might want to provide proof of your credentials to. That's important because if those DIDs were just to live in a database somewhere, you would simply be trusting whoever ran that database to say, no, this really is a credential that came from the DVLA, or yes, this is really Barclays Bank that's asking you to prove all this juicy personal information. And while the legacy, the PKI and certificate authority model works fairly well for that. It's actually holding us back in terms of true adoption of digital ID for a number of these more compelling use cases. So that is what the sovereign ledger's core function is to be, is a distributed store of those DIDs and the corresponding verification keys. So the persistence model for the credentials, which is the sort of second part of the question, is that they get stored with the individual that they belong to. And all that the ledger knows about is who the issuer is, and it also has some revocation information on there that allows individuals to prove that their credential is still valid without revealing anything that uniquely identifies that credential.
That is fantastic. Thank you so much, James. And I think with that, we should wrap up. We've shared a lot of information. We will be sending out answers to some of those questions directly where we've got them. And we will be following up with each of you individually to give you the opportunity to get in touch if you'd like to join the early access program, or to get in touch and find out more about our products. So really with that, it leaves me to say thank you to James and Tyler for taking the time to share more about our product stack, and to thank everyone who's joined the webinar from all over the world. We've had a really great turnout and some fantastic questions. So I really appreciate the time that you've taken to join. If you want to get started today, you can get in touch. And frankly, we are super excited to be able to help you on your decentralized identity journey. And with that, we will close, and thank you very much. We'll speak to you soon.